Today we do have almost 38,000 GPUs which are available at a very low cost. So the idea is to ensure that we reduce our dependencies on the models which are there from the West, primarily from the United States. Then the India's AI investment is much more than $1 billion. Microsoft earlier this year announced a $3 billion investment in India.
And Google is announcing a big one.
Google is likely
Andhra
to announce
Pradesh.
something big. There have been countries which did not allow Google and Meta to establish shop there. And they built their own alternatives to that. India has not been following that policy. So government is committed to incubate this entire sector, which means so much for our economy, because the long-term gains, the downsides are much higher compared to the investment that we need to make.
Hello and welcome to this Moneycontrol podcast. We are coming to you from the India Mobile Congress in New Delhi, and joining us on this conversation is Mr. Abhishek Singh, the Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Electronics and IT, who also heads up India's AI mission, and my colleague Ohik is also joining me for this conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Abhishek Singh. There's been a lot of action around AI this week, at least in terms of global investments from Anthropic to GraphCode. In terms of India's own AI mission, take us through where we are. You've announced 12 foundational models by various companies, but where are we on that journey?
See, as you know, our AI mission was approved last year with an objective to address all the gaps that exist in our AI story, whether it's with regard to compute, whether data sets, algorithms, foundation models, applications, funding for startups, taking up skilling, and building a framework for safe and trustworthy AI. So we have moved forward on all the 7 verticals, and more so in ensuring that the basic components which are required for building AI models and applications is made available. And that means making compute available. Today we do have almost 38,000 GPUs which are available at a very low cost of less than $1 per GPU per hour, which is available to our industry, to our startups and researchers. We are supporting 12 Indian initiatives, which includes initiatives from startups, from industry, as also academia, in building an Indian LLM and SLM. There are some SLMs also which were approved recently. So the idea is to ensure that we reduce our dependencies on the models which are there from the West, primarily from the United States, and build up some Indian models which are more equipped to the Indian context, in Indian languages, our heritage, our culture, and ensuring that more and more people in India will be able to access services through them. In addition, we have enabled a datasets platform called AI Kosh, which has grown from around 300 datasets when we launched in March this year to more than 3,000 datasets in the last 6 months. And we do hope it to grow very fast with the involvement of both the private sector and the public sector. Both government and private sector are contributing datasets to this platform. And this platform, over and above having datasets, it also have models. Almost 240 models are hosted there. It also have a sandbox environment. It also have tools for building applications, and those applications which have already been built can be tried out, can be modified, can be adapted for various needs. We are supporting state governments and other government of India departments in building applications in various domains, whether it's agriculture, whether it's climate, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's governance. So these applications are being built up and scaled up so that ultimately the end users are able to benefit from AI related applications.
So, helping how, in the sense leveraging Bhashini's models, or
not only Bhashini is just one component of it. Like, for example, if somebody is wanting to build up an AI based application for diagnosing, say, tuberculosis. So there are data sets from health department relating to X-ray images, relating to CT scan images, data sets which are anonymized, which are annotated, which are made available. So people are able to use them to build their own applications, train them and deploy them. So similarly, in agriculture sector, we are getting ICAR to share data sets. So those who want to build something can build using that. Data sets from Indian Meteorological Department, weather data sets, soil health data sets. So data sets across domains are made available to build applications which will be more tuned to our requirements, to our needs.
Good.
Right. So what would you say to people who say that, this is India becoming a Dow farm for global AI companies? OpenAI is opening an office, Anthropic is opening an office, Perplexity has introduced Perplexity Pro, Google already has a big presence. So it's global companies leveraging India's, internet user base, AI users. What would you say to that?
See, like, we are one of those countries which doesn't shy away from letting the American companies or the Western companies to operate in India while we build up our own capabilities, our whole digital transformation. There have been countries which did not allow Google and Meta to establish shop there, and they built their own alternatives to that. India has not been following that policy, while we let other companies who have built innovative projects deploy them here, but it doesn't take away our efforts in trying to make Indian alternatives for those solutions. We are currently not there, we are behind. We are making investments in doing this, but we do hope that we'll be able to catch up with the best and we'll be able to build Indian alternatives to that. It's also important because if we don't do so, Indian users will continue to contribute to these models, enrich them, make them better.
Make them training.
Training, because if
contribute to
you,
training
the
data.
more I use ChatGPT, the more I make that model better.
Correct.
So, but it's not, our philosophy is also not that till we have an Indian alternative, we will not ban any such entity from operating here. So we have to, our policy is more a balanced approach, that while we let these platforms operate in India, at the same time we are there to support Indian solutions. The government is committed to provide support, and we do believe that Indian startups and Indian entrepreneurs and Indian engineers have the capability of making the best of the products. It does require a lot of investments, it does require patient capital. We do hope that our VCs and investment firms and our big Indian companies, if we say big tech Indian, they also invest in this field and build solutions which our startups are trying to do.
Right. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, will you look at expanding the size of the India AI mission? Because some people were saying the entire size of the India AI mission is what an American AI company would spend in a week or in 2 days. So do you think this is enough? And in that same lens, will you also look at significantly enhancing GPU capacity from the current 38,000 that have been empaneled? Because you now have 12 foundational models, competing for the same GPU capacity.
See, like, the mistake that very often people and analysts do is that they compare India AI's outlay with regard to the private investment that is happening elsewhere. And very often people say that in India you have a $1 billion India AI mission compared to Stargate, which is investing 500 billion. But 500 billion is not the US government's investment. 500 billion is the industry's investment, and part of that 500 billion people, for all that may come to India, because when they look at expanding data center capabilities and all, we do hope that most companies will ultimately look at having at least 20% of their capabilities in India. So that expansion will happen in India. When we talk about India AI, India's outlay on AI, we don't account for what our private companies are investing into it. Like, for example, if you just look at the GPU infrastructure that we have built in, the 38,000 GPUs are built in, we have not spent money directly for building that. We are just subsidizing the end users. So the GPU infrastructure has primarily been invested by the private sector, whether it's Yota or E2E or NextGen or Geo platforms.
And TCS has announced a 1 giga.
So if you add up all these investments, then the India's AI investment is much more than $1 billion. In fact, no other country has actually providing proactively government support for building AI application and models. We have done this primarily to trigger the investment and ensure that Indian industry and Indian funds also come forward and make investments. Like the Geo is setting up a 1 gigawatt data center farm and AI compute in Jamnagar. So that entire investment is Geo's investment, that is not added in our AI outlay that we are talking of. Similarly, SIFI is expanding, Yota is expanding, TCS announced $6 to $7 billion. Microsoft earlier this year announced a $3 billion investment in India.
And Google is announcing a big one.
Google is likely to announce something big. So IBM is announcing. So all these investments which is coming from the private sector, if I add up all of it and say that India's AI outlay is this, that will be one way to look at it. The way some analysts compare the American investment with regard to what we are investing here. So, and over and above that, having said that, Government of India's commitment is to ensure to do everything possible that requires to ensure that that we provide support to Indian companies to build these solutions. So these 10,000 crores is just the starting point. If we are able to exhaust that, and if there is a need for providing more support, which might be needed, because after these foundation models are done, suppose Bharat Gen or Sarvam or Socket or Gyani, they come out with their foundation models. The next stage will be to do inferencing on those models, and inferencing will also take some time. It's not that they will become revenue positive from day one. So we may need to provide them support also for inferencing for some time to come, and government is committed to provide that. So I don't think public spending will be a bottleneck or a constraint for ensuring that we are able to reach our rightful place in the AI ecosystem.
So for any support for inferencing, as you were saying, is that going to be like amended in the India AI mission, because that's not specifically mentioned? Like India AI mission specifically says that we'll develop foundational models, but for inferencing, will that happen? Like how will we?
No, India AI mission covers the entire stack. It covers from compute to foundation models to applications to use cases to startups. So there is a series of funding windows which are available for providing these support. So we are going in a very logical, in a very structured manner, that the focus is while we are building foundation models, we are also providing support for application development. We are also providing support to startups who are investing in this field, and some of the investment will go where? Will go for inferencing. And the compute infrastructure, once it is set up, it's not that the compute will only be for foundation models. Suppose we set up 3-4 foundation models, 3 LLMs, 5 SLMs, something like that. After that, the compute will not lie idle. It will be made available for inferencing. So inferencing is part of our India AI strategy, and we do hope that funding will never be a constraint. That's what the Finance Ministry has said. In fact, we just saw the electronic component manufacturing scheme, wherein the commitments have been more than double. Similarly, in the Semicon, we started with 76,000 crores. The Semicon 2.0 will also come up. So government is committed to incubate this entire sector, which means so much for our economy, because the long-term gains, the downsides are much higher compared to the investment that we need to make.
Right. So in terms of bringing back very good AI talent from wherever they are in the US or around the world, now with the immigration policies also being pretty adversarial, what is the government planning to do? How will they take advantage of this? Because now people are saying, अच्छा US में H1B आ गया तो लोग Canada जाएंगे या Australia जाएंगे. There are like 6 other options. But how are we going to try and get some of the good AI talent back to India? Because these people are building models for your Anthropic and OpenAI and Perplexity and working in Perplexity and so on, frontier models like DeepMind. But what are we doing to bring back some of this talent?
See, this is already happening. In fact, what we were seeing was that some of the 12 proposals that we have approved, out of that, I think at least 2 are those in which bright engineers from the US, from Stanford, from working in American companies like DeepMind and all, were relocating to India. In fact, one guy has dropped out of his masters and quitting his job at DeepMind and trying to come and build a model there. So already it was happening as part of the India's AI story, the semiconductor story, the incentives that we are providing through the Deep Tech Startup Fund of Funds, the RDI initiative that's been announced by DST, the ANRF initiative. So this is already happening across sectors, wherein people were seeing opportunities that exist in India for building AI products, for building deep tech products. In addition, whatever has happened in the US may kind of contribute to what we are doing. And very often somebody had said that when your intentions are right, the universe conspires to make those things happen. So maybe everything is a blessing in disguise. So we should not be too bothered about the policies of other countries. They will do what is best for themselves. We need to do what is best for ourselves. It's not that the US has a different tariff policy or different visa policy. Because of that, we will tweak our policy. Our policy has been to provide support to our deep tech ecosystem, provide support to our Indian minds, and instead of just looking at Indian minds coming back, we would also look at Indian minds staying here. And if we are able to provide that kind of environment, that kind of support, I am sure we will be able to incubate world-class companies here in India.
Great. On that note, thank you very much, sir, for talking to us.
Thank you.